Rejection. It's a word that echoes differently in everyone's heart. For some, it brings the memory of a lover who never looked back. For others, it's the job they desperately wanted but never got. And for many, it's the silent ache of not being chosen, not being seen, not being enough. It's easy to dismiss rejection as a part of life, something we're told to get over or learn from. But the truth is, rejection carves itself into us. It leaves behind quiet wounds we often try to laugh off, bury, or ignore. Yet, behind every no we've received lies a mirror, one that doesn't just reflect how others see us but how we start to see ourselves. This is not just a video about pain. It's a journey into the heart of rejection, its sting, its silence, its strange power to shape who we become. Through stories, insights, and reflections, we're going to explore not only what rejection does to us, but what it reveals for us. Because sometimes rejection isn't the end of our worth. It's the beginning of our awakening. Everyone remembers their first rejection. Maybe it was in a dimly lit classroom, when a trembling hand passed a folded note asking, "Do you like me too?" Or on a phone screen staring at the words, "I'm sorry, I just don't feel the same." It doesn't matter how old you were or what the details were. What matters is how it made you feel. That strange, silent disbelief. That moment when your stomach dropped and your heart beat louder than your thoughts. It felt like the air left the room and time slowed down, just enough for you to feel the full weight of not being chosen. The worst part isn't always the rejection itself. Sometimes it's what we tell ourselves after. I wasn't good enough. I should have known better. I must be too much, or maybe not enough. We begin to rewrite the story of who we are, not based on truth but on one person's decision, one missed opportunity, one unanswered message. But what if that no wasn't a mirror of your worth, but a moment meant to redirect your path? Because here's the quiet truth that often gets lost in the hurt. Rejection doesn't mean you're unworthy. It simply means something or someone wasn't meant to meet you in that moment. And that's okay. You're still becoming. After rejection, something strange happens. We don't just feel the pain. We build a story around it. A job rejection becomes, "I'll never be successful." A breakup turns into, "I'm not lovable." A failed dream whispers, "I should stop trying." And slowly, those stories become our truth. The human mind hates uncertainty. It craves explanation, and when we don't get answers, we create them, often at the expense of our self-worth. We forget that people say no for 1,000 unseen reasons. Maybe they're not ready. Maybe they're afraid. Maybe their path simply isn't meant to cross yours. But instead of giving them the complexity of their own life, we take it personally. We internalize it, and we let it define us. But the most dangerous thing about rejection isn't the pain. It's the narrative we let it plant. So what if, instead of saying, "I was rejected because I'm not enough," we said, "That wasn't mine to carry. Their no doesn't cancel my purpose. I don't have to shrink myself to be chosen." Because the most powerful truth is this: you can be fully worthy and still not be someone's choice. And that doesn't diminish your value. It clarifies your path. Rejection always feels personal, even when it isn't. You know it logically. People have their reasons, their baggage, their past. But that doesn't stop your mind from circling back to one question: what's wrong with me? You start examining yourself like a crime scene, picking apart words you said, how you looked that day, your laugh, your body, your dreams. Nothing escapes judgment. Suddenly, you become the villain in your own story, guilty of not being enough for someone who couldn't see your worth. But here's the raw truth. Sometimes people reject us not because of what they see, but because of what they're afraid to face in themselves. Your confidence might threaten their insecurity. Your love might clash with their fear of intimacy. Your truth might make them confront a version of themselves they're not ready to meet. So they walk away, not because you weren't good, but because your presence asked more of them than they were prepared to give. It's not fair. It's not easy. But it's not about your value. Don't confuse someone's inability to receive you with your unworthiness to be loved. Sometimes, rejection hurts the most right before something better finds its way in. You didn't get the job, and months later, you found the path that truly aligned with your passion. They didn't choose you, and in time, someone came along who loved the parts of you that others overlooked. You failed once and learned to rebuild something more honest, more powerful. It doesn't always happen right away. In fact, it rarely does. At first, rejection feels like a slammed door, a dead end, an ending. But in hindsight, we often realize it was a redirection, a protection we didn't understand in the moment, a pause so something deeper could take shape, a painful detour that led us closer to ourselves. Author Steve Maraboli once said, "Every time I thought I was being rejected from something good, I was actually being redirected to something better." And you know what? He was right. The people who walked away made room for your growth. The setbacks forced you to rise differently. The silence taught you how to listen to your own voice. And through it all, you didn't just survive rejection. You transformed because of it. So, the next time the door closes, don't knock harder. Pause, breathe, and whisper this truth to yourself. Maybe this isn't a rejection. Maybe this is my redirection. Rejection doesn't just hurt when it happens. It also haunts us before it even arrives. There's a voice inside, quiet but persuasive, that says, "Don't speak up. You might be dismissed. Don't confess your feelings. They might not feel the same. Don't apply. Don't try. Don't risk." And so we shrink. We stay silent. We choose safety over authenticity, comfort over courage. But in doing that, we don't protect ourselves. We abandon ourselves, all because we've internalized this lie: it's better to be invisible than to be rejected. But invisibility is its own kind of suffering, a slow erosion of the soul, because deep down we want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be known, and hiding parts of ourselves out of fear robs us of the very connection we long for. As Brené Brown said, vulnerability is the birthplace of connection, but vulnerability also risks rejection. That's the cost. And yet it's also the gateway to everything real. So, we have to ask ourselves, are we more afraid of rejection or of never living fully in our truth? Because truth, even when it's not accepted, always leads us somewhere real. It's one thing to experience rejection. It's another thing to carry it like it defines who you are. Many people live years, decades even wearing rejection like a scarlet letter, not visibly, but emotionally. You can see it in the way they settle, in the way they second-guess their dreams, in how they downplay their desires before someone else can dismiss them. But the power of rejection lies not in what happens to us, but in what we choose to do next. Because here's what most people forget: you are not the sum of who didn't choose you. You are the sum of how you choose yourself. Yes, they walked away. Yes, it didn't work out. Yes, you were overlooked, underestimated, misunderstood. But here you are, still standing, still breathing, still learning how to rise softer but wiser. And that matters. The most powerful act of rebellion against rejection isn't revenge. It's self-recognition. To look in the mirror and say, "I'm still worthy of love. I still belong in the room." Their rejection was never the final word on who I am. That's not denial. That's reclamation. Because the truth is, rejection can hurt, but you still get to decide what it means. There's a reason why some rejections cut deeper than others. It's not always about what happened. It's about what it reminds us of. That time your parent didn't show up. That moment in class when they laughed at your answer. That first love who made you feel invisible the day after they said forever. Rejection reopens doors to places we thought we'd locked shut. It whispers the same story we've been trying to outgrow. You are not enough. You are too much. You don't belong. And so we spiral, not just because of the pain in front of us, but because of the echoes behind us. But here's the sacred truth. Rejection doesn't always mean something is wrong with you. Sometimes it simply means there's something within you that still needs healing. In his book, The Body Keeps the Score, 𝑹𝑬𝑚𝑰𝑶𝑵 talks about how the body remembers trauma long after the mind forgets. The heart remembers too. And rejection, it becomes a trigger, a mirror reflecting the inner child still yearning to be loved without condition. The way out is not to suppress that pain, but to sit with it, to honor it, to say, yes, I feel abandoned, but I'm not abandoning myself this time. Rejection might have cracked something open, but maybe it cracked it open to let the light in. Not all rejection stings the same. Rejection from strangers is a bruise. Rejection from loved ones, it's a fracture. When someone you trusted turns their back, when someone you gave your heart to treats it carelessly, when family makes you feel like a burden instead of a blessing, that's not just rejection, it's betrayal. And it leaves you with questions that echo louder than any answer could. How could they? Why wasn't I enough? What did I do wrong? But perhaps the most haunting question, was their love ever real? The pain here is layered, because when the people you love make you feel disposable, it reshapes the way you love yourself. You start protecting your heart with silence. You stop expecting loyalty. You build walls so high not even hope can climb in. But you must understand, their inability to love you was never a reflection of your lovability. People love from where they are. Some people are broken in places you can't fix. Some are carrying wounds so deep, they bleed on everyone who tries to hold them. So instead of closing your heart, guard it wisely but leave it open. Because one day, someone will come along who doesn't see your softness as weakness, who doesn't turn away when things get heavy. They'll stay, but until then, let this truth hold you. The love that was withheld from you will never compare to the love you'll learn to give yourself. What if rejection wasn't the enemy? What if it was the catalyst? So many of the world's most powerful stories don't begin with applause. They begin with a no, a slammed door, a cold silence, a moment of loss so heavy it forces a person to rebuild themselves. Because rejection, as brutal as it feels, has a strange alchemy to it. It burns what no longer fits. It strips us of illusion. It drags us back to the mirror and demands we meet ourselves as we are. You don't grow when everything goes your way. You grow when something shatters and you decide to pick up the pieces differently this time. J.K. Rowling was rejected 12 times before anyone believed in Harry Potter. Oprah Winfrey was told she was unfit for television. Steve Jobs was rejected by the very company he created. But what did they all have in common? They didn't let rejection end their story. They let it refine them, sharpen them. They turned pain into purpose and became unstoppable. That's what rejection can do if you let it. Not define you, but distill you down to the fire you forgot you carried. Some people are never rejected because they never dare. They stay small. They play it safe. They never ask, never leap, never confess. But you put yourself out there. You tried. You opened your heart. And yes, it didn't go as you hoped. But that matters, because rejection, in its deepest essence, is proof that you lived boldly. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't a rejection at all. Maybe it was a redirection. You didn't get that job because you were meant to build your own. They didn't love you back because your story was destined elsewhere. That dream fell apart because a better one was waiting for you to grow into it. In The Surrender Experiment by Michael A. Singer, he writes about letting life unfold not according to our rigid plans, but through trust, through surrender, through understanding that what we label as failure might just be life clearing the path. So take a breath, take the lesson, take your heart back and move forward, because every rejection has one of two meanings, not yet or not this, and both are sacred. Here's a quiet truth not many want to hear. Healing from rejection doesn't mean you won't be rejected again. It just means you'll meet it differently the next time. You'll feel the sting, but you won't bleed out. You'll hear the no, but you won't collapse into worthlessness. You'll be able to say, I'm disappointed, without saying, I'm not enough. Because real courage isn't about avoiding rejection. It's about showing up despite it. It's walking back into love knowing your heart has been bruised before. It's applying again, creating again, writing again even when you remember how it felt to be overlooked. As Brené Brown says in Daring Greatly, vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. And that's what makes you brave, not because you're fearless, but because you keep loving, hoping, and trying even though you know how much it can hurt. Rejection doesn't mean you're weak. If anything, surviving it and still choosing to risk again, that's strength, that's resilience, that's the soul of transformation. Let's be real for a second. Rejection doesn't just say, "This didn't work." It often screams, "You are the problem." But that voice, it's a liar. You are not the job you didn't get. You are not the text that never came back. You are not the person who didn't stay. You are the one who tried. You are the one who felt deeply. You are the one who dared to be seen. And that is never something to be ashamed of. In The Gifts of Imperfection, Brené Brown reminds us, you are imperfect. You are wired for struggle, but you are worthy of love and belonging. Rejection might shape your story, but it doesn't define your soul. It's just a moment, a plot twist, not your entire identity. Let it refine you, not reduce you. Because when the dust settles and the silence fades, you will rise again, not in spite of rejection, but because of it. And this time, you won't be looking for validation from the outside. You'll know that your worth never needed their approval in the first place. Rejection, it carves us open in places we thought were solid. It exposes our deepest fears. Am I enough? Was I ever enough? Will I ever be enough? But rejection, when examined through the soul's lens, is not a verdict. It is an invitation to come home to yourself, to excavate your own worth from the ashes of someone else's no, to stop handing your value to the hands that trembled when asked to hold it. As the philosopher Elaine de Botton once said, the more you know yourself, the less you need validation from others. This isn't just a self-esteem mantra. It is the lifeline for those navigating the dark terrain of rejection. Look to the road less traveled by Scott Peck, who taught us that discipline and spiritual growth are born from pain, not comfort. Revisit Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, who urges us to stop running from our unworthiness and instead whisper to ourselves, I'm still here, I'm still whole. And remember the quiet courage in Letters to a Young Poet by Rainer Maria Rilke, where he writes, no feeling is final. Let that echo through your bones. To everyone who has ever been rejected by a person, a dream, a world that didn't see your brilliance, you are not broken. You are being redirected, refined, reassembled. Take a moment and do this. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself not why did they reject me, but what is this moment teaching me about my strength? Then go create again, love again, apply again, speak again. Don't let a no stop the eternal yes of your becoming. Subscribe to Innerverse if this message found you in your darkest hour. Share this with someone who needs to remember they are not defined by their wounds. And comment below, what did rejection teach you about yourself that acceptance never could? Because here in the Innerverse, we don't run from the pain, we transform through it.